Hey, we're live with another edition of GamerGate Interviews, and today we have John. Say hi.
Hello.
So I'm just gonna go right into it. How did you get into GamerGate?
Well, I think I first started hearing about the controversy around August sometime when Action Points released a video on YouTube. And hold on one second, please. Um, Essentially, he was talking about this Zoe Quinn person, how she was getting a lot of attacks and criticisms by a lot of people on Twitter and on the internet. And he was also talking about how that there was also issues going on in the midst of the controversy. He didn't really touch exactly what was going on, but did a little more research, a little more digging, and apparently at the time it just seemed like there was a giant controversy over something that was innocuous. It did become apparent to me that it was more of the progressive press versus the consumers, but I didn't quite know what was happening at the time. And unfortunately, the next thing I heard about it was basically with the Co-optional podcast, where John Tron was a guest, and they were talking about some of the things that were going on, but they're more focused on the lack of the utter contention amongst the gaming community online, and not really into the full story. Then I noticed that, and then I thought this thing would just blow over and go away and just be another controversy that was happening. Apparently, that was just like a serious matter of some sort, but nothing specific. Then I noticed that it wasn't going away, and I saw a couple of the Monday Matt videos on the subject, and I basically saw that wow, there is a real problem here, especially with the censorship. The censorship was what really motivated me to get involved with GamerGate in the first place, because essentially it was one thing for there to be a controversy with the press and a controversy with gaming, but there was another thing for people to just basically say you can't talk about this. And not just on the websites themselves, but also they went as far as to censor Reddit and 4chan, and that really baffled me. And as I started watching more videos through September, I realized that, hey, this is a real problem. If people don't take a stand, do something about it, it's not going to get fixed. It's just going to stay the same. So that's essentially how I started getting involved. And what I first started doing was I started writing. My first plan was to write some articles to combat the rhetoric being thrown on Twitter and by the opposition a lot. And I started appearing on I appeared on one of Sargon's streams when he did one of those community streams way back in, I think it was sometime around September. And I also started appearing on Robin Gething's open house streams. And they started talking about the issues. And, well, I really got invested and did as much research as I can, and I saw exactly how much the corruption went, and it's been a ride.
Yeah, and you've also done some streams since then. That's pretty much how we got to know each other.
Yeah. I started doing streams either around the end of October or it was not the end of October. It was mid-November I started doing my own streams, and the reason why was because I wanted to talk about specific topics and issues, and I want to stay on point and focused on things. There was also a couple of community streams I did in the same vein as Sargon, and those were good, although those stopped because I was also busy with a project known as the Rebuild Initiative, which was essentially it was a campaign to garner allies from the AAA scene and the indie scene, and trying to have developers speak out. And we have seen developers come forward and step out and speak up about it, but not to the full extent as the Rebuild Initiative originally intended to. And unfortunately, I don't think the campaign was terribly successful. Although I did really like seeing that people actually did participate, and we did get some responses from developers.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Anything you want to cover more on this before we move into the next question?
No, not really.
Okay. Moving to the present, what are you currently doing in GamerGate, and what do you think of it in the present?
In the present time? Well,
Yeah.
for me personally, I'm busy researching as much as I can to corruption and different angles. I'm looking through lots of archives of stuff and searching through results. I really cannot give specifics on that because the one thing you don't really want to do when you're researching something, especially when it concerns corruption, is expose that what it is you're investigating, because others will be listening and watching, and there is a potential that either one, the information you have is incomplete and it'll be misconstrued, which I've seen happen many times, or two, the investigation will become compromised because people who don't want you investigating something will do everything they can to remove the archives of what it is you're investigating. So it's something that is delicate, but it's something that people with enough know-how, enough time on their hands, and actually are onto something as opposed to going down a rabbit hole can actually do. In addition to that, I've also been trying to promote new media that we've been creating. I work as I help with the Loot Gamer staff as a consultant, making sure that things are up to snuff and advising them on how to do things. And I also have my own blog that I'm running, jkellyblog.com, where I'm writing my own consumer advocacy articles. Although, admittedly, on my own blog, it severely needs more content, so I haven't been shilling it as hard as other things that are happening.
All right. You want to quickly cover what you think of GamerGate in the present?
I think that at the present, GamerGate has pretty much run its course, to be honest. The only reason why people should continue is for stretch goals, because essentially what happened with GamerGate over the course of almost a year now, we have seen the GJP, the Game Journal Pro's related websites and affiliates, the ones that we had to disconnect with the press to begin with. We've seen them, their brands, their reputations have been muddied, and a lot of them have suffered severe financial loss and costs. In addition to that, Leigh Alexander's gone, Ben Kuchera's gone. We got a lot of these jokers have been either fired, laid off, or just quit. And especially with the Escapists. I mean, that website looks a lot better now without MovieBob, for instance, and a lot of the other curmudgeons that were there. Although I don't think that the Escapists should be touted necessarily as the champion of ethics, but they have made great strides to reform their policies and actually reestablish connection with their user base.
All right. We're getting more into the future. What do you think GamerGate is going to become or form into?
I can't really say. The stretch goals I alluded to earlier pertain mainly to the cliques and organizations that are essentially trying to astroturf gaming. Now, to elaborate on that, essentially, these organizations, they like the GDC, the IGDA, the IGF, they're heavily, they don't really have the pedigree necessary to actually have the legitimacy that they boast they have. What they do have is diva devs, PR agents, journos, friends, and connections, and they're able to network really well and meet up at conferences, establish organizations and 501(c)s, and make themselves look like a legitimate organization when they lack the pedigree, they lack the technical know-how. And they're still a problem, and the fact that they haven't really been damaged is a sign that the paradigm shift hasn't fully happened. So, but I don't believe simply pointing out their malfeasances, their improprieties, and even how the organizations aren't as legitimate as they claim themselves to be is necessarily going to solve the problem. I think that what needs to happen is we need to basically build up, and part of that can be through what we're doing through new media websites. I know several people have come up with new organization ideas, which if enough earnest effort and enough people with the proper backgrounds and know-how get behind them, they can result in really good things. And by competing, you can potentially stop these cliques from pushing their agenda onto the gaming scene, and you can have people whose agenda is basically for the games, for game developers, and for gamers back in charge.
So some have said that it might perhaps become a watchdog. Would you agree, disagree?
I would agree to a point. I believe that we can become our own watchdogs essentially. When it comes to making sure the media does its job, be the change you want to see. Don't just depend on like sites like Escapist, TechRaptor, Highland Arrow, Niche Gamer, and others. They've been doing a good job, or at least a better job than the others have. Other journalistic outlets have been. However, if you want to see consumer advocacy go a long way, you need to become your own consumer advocate, and you need to advise gamers on exactly. You need to advise gamers on what's good and what's not good, and just put yourself out there. And I see a lot, and by that I mean I see a lot of people on V and on Reddit subforums. They have a lot of technical know-how. They have a lot of investment into what they talk about. What they could start doing is they could start writing up their own blogs or setting up their own YouTube channels, and essentially putting their ideas forward in a way in a manner that would be consumable by the public at large. And that is something that can work as a watchdog group. People can also do, as far as like making sure that journalist stays with integrity. There's a lot of investigative journalism that you yourself can do if you have enough dedication and effort to it, and enough know-how, and you're able to write well, and you're able to actually objectively cover a story as opposed to putting your own influence, your own bias into it. I could see GamerGate as I can see many gamers going that route where they finding corruption, exposing it, and letting the public decide if they want to still do business with these organizations anymore.
All right. And what would you have changed in GamerGate, or what do you think it's doing well?
What do I think it's doing well right now? I believe the people who are keeping the skepticism that was pervasive early on and maintaining it and not taking everything at face value and not falling into outrage culture. I believe that is what is doing right. I believe people who are results oriented and want to see actual change happen, those are the people that you want to emulate. Those are the people you want to see what they're doing, and those are the people that you may want to help. There are a lot of people who are very earnest about their intentions. However, there are also a lot of people who I'm not going to doubt their intentions are not. However, they have been essentially engaging in a lot of outrage culture, and they've been engaging in a lot of cult of personality and factionalization and playing identity politics. And by identity politics, I don't mean the typical progressive left politics of male, female, or race or whatever. I mean, essentially, Gamergate as an identity is not something that should be honored or subscribed to. Gamergate to me should just be treated as a hashtag at the end of the day. And a lot of people's failure to do that is a problem, and it's only causing a lot of drama, and it's only confusing third parties, the quote unquote neutrals, looking into the situation, and they can't make heads or tails of it as a result. That I would like to see go away, and as well as cult of personality, wherein people just subscribe to somebody who they like because of who they are instead of what they do. And I think that needs to stop as well.
All right. We got a question from JT. You know him. He asks, what is your concern about these organizations, which you mentioned earlier in the interview?
My concern is that they will have enough industry clout to basically impede artistic vision in gaming, or rather, not necessarily. Well, to be more specific, the intent of the studios, the publishers, and the developers behind gaming, and put enough pressure on them so they cannot release the product that they want to release, and consequentially deny consumers their desire to have the games that they want. And that would be the main problem with that. There's also the problem with them still having the capacity to blackmail and smear people who does not toe the party line, which they repeatedly do. Those are all things that could influence the gaming sphere, and that's essentially how they're a problem. Those are the concerns I have about these organizations, as well as the inherent corruption when they don't even recognize what a conflict of interest is, and when they decide to abuse their status as either journalist or PR agent or what have you, and think that they give some license to be opinionated, and by being opinionated, they're actually trying to put undue weight or pressure on either gamers or game developers to basically force them to conform to their views.
All right. It doesn't seem to be more questions from the chat. Is there anything you want to cover before we close this down?
If I can give a moment to promote some websites that you can visit.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right. You can go visit Lewd Gamer, which I already mentioned. I'm a consultant of. It's a website catering to erotic and adult games. It's got a great staff, and they've been doing a really good job at releasing hard-hitting articles and giving great reviews on games of this nature. Of course, it goes without saying it's not safe for work. So if you're at school or at work, you may want to wait until you get home before clicking on it. Another one I like to show out is Highland Arrow. The people behind it are really good at what they do. I've read their reviews and also news articles. Their dedication is towards quality, and the website also doesn't have any ads. They have a subscription model, which I think is great. There's also, if you're interested in investigative journalism and gaming, the best person for that would be Willie Musher on his website, One Angry Gamer. I believe you can type in oneangrygamer.net, although there's also blogjob.oneangrygamer.com. And Chip2Block20 has been, which you're a part of. I would also recommend that website as an alternative. Even though it's critical of them, Tech Raptor, they're pretty good. And The Escapist is also pretty good as well. There's also Niche Gamer, and well, that's all that I have off the top of my head. But there are alternatives out there, and a lot of the other websites that we have been fighting against, they're in hot water right now, even still. And like I said, the brands and reputation have been smeared. So you want alternatives? The alternatives are here. So please do go visit them and check them out.
Yeah, and remember to stay critical, even though I write for one of those sites.
Absolutely.
If there's anything you want to point out, please do so. I think at least I would appreciate that. So.
Oh yeah, sure thing.
All right, that's pretty much it. Thanks for coming on, John, for having this. So yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks everyone for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye everyone.